Welcome to my kitchen, y'all. This is David Locke, and this is my blog, Boots and Bow Ties, about everything cooking and everything gardening. And it's a very busy time here in my kitchen. We're preparing for Thanksgiving and preparing for Christmas. So I wanted to teach you one of the quintessential things that any chef or any cook needs to know how to make, and that is a simple pie crust. This recipe is called Pate Brisee, which basically in French means broken dough, and it's a simple pie crust, and it's what is called a short crust pastry. The reason it's called a short crust pastry is that the fat, or in this case the butter, inhibits the growth of gluten molecule chains, and it basically shortens them, and that creates a flaky dough. And I'm also going to show you one of my secret ingredients to make your dough even more flaky. So let's talk about the things that you need. You're going to need a food processor. You don't have to use that pastry cutter and cut forever. This will make the job very easy, and it's fitted with a stainless steel blade attachment. You're going to want about a half a cup of ice water, and you can see I've already got my ice in there melting. 2 sticks of very cold butter. 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. A teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of sugar. And then the very secret ingredient, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. So now I'm going to show you how to assemble the dough, and then I'll show you how to roll it out. One thing I want you to know before I start to assemble this that is so important is that anytime you make pastry, there are 2 things that you want to remember. One is the ingredients must be ice cold. Your hands are at 98.6 or around that, and they will warm the pastry. So you've got to remember, essentially you're working with 2 heaters when you're making a pastry dough. So everything has to be ice cold. The butter, you take it out immediately from the refrigerator, you work with it. If it starts to get warm, even before you put it in your food processor, you put it back in the freezer for a minute. You've got to use ice water. And then once you start to work with the dough, you have to touch it as little as possible, because that is the Achilles heel of any pastry. The other thing is that you have to be very careful not to overwork it. So I wanted to make sure that you knew those 2 helpful handy-dandy hints that will make or break your pastry. I've put some of the butter in my food processor, and I'm just simply beginning to pulse it. And what I'll do is I'll sort of work in batches, putting a little bit of butter at a time, closing the food processor, and pulsing it just a little bit. Taking it off. Again, making sure not to overwork the butter. About 3 batches would probably be enough. This is already starting to get a little soft on me. Then I'm going to run this till it resembles a coarse meal. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is the consistency that we're looking for. You can see how it resembles sort of a coarse oatmeal. Now for the next step, I'm just going to sprinkle over my teaspoon of salt, my teaspoon of sugar, and I'm just going to pulse that just a little bit more. Just a couple more pulses. Then I'm going to take my tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and I'm going to pour that into my cup of ice water. All right, now for the magic. One of the things I do to make sure I don't get any of the ice cubes into my batter is I just simply take a fork and I get those ice cubes out of my water. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn the food processor on, and in a steady stream, we're going to pour just a little bit at a time. You can see how I'm just doing a little stream. And slowly, the batter, or the dough rather, will start to come together into a ball. A little bit at a time. You can see it's, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's beginning to come together. Voila! So, there we go. And it's begun to come together in a ball. Before we can use our dough, we need to chill it in the refrigerator for at least an hour. Now, this pastry crust, this recipe makes 2 discs of pie dough that we will be able to roll out. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to simply dump it out in my saran wrap that I've laid here on the table, and you can see it's kind of already divided. And then I'm just going to sort of gently with my hands begin to press that together, then fold over again, trying not to touch it as much as possible. And what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna flatten that out into a very nice disc. What I'll do is I'll put this in the refrigerator for at least an hour to chill. Again, trying not to touch it as much as possible. And then we'll roll it out. Now for the fun part, to roll it out. I like a rolling pin like this. It's just a simple cylinder. I feel like it's a little easier just to get your hands around. I'm gonna bring my flour over here. I've got my pie plate that I'm gonna be using, and of course I've got my round of pastry that's been chilling. And there's really so many ways that you could use this. You could use it for a quiche. You can use it for anything. And what I basically do is I just flour my surface. The less flour, the better. Then I'm gonna flour my rolling pin so that it doesn't stick. Then I'm gonna unwrap my round of dough. Again, trying to touch it as little as possible. And then I'll put just a little bit of flour on the top of it and begin rolling. Rolling from the center out. This one's been in the refrigerator a good while and it's starting to stick a little bit. We put a little bit more flour. What you want to do is every time that you think it's about to stick is turn it about a quarter of a turn. Quarter of a turn every time. Just going around. You can see how I'm just trying to keep it as round as I can. I want to get it to be the thickness of about a quarter of an inch. Turn a quarter of an inch. I'm starting to tear a little bit, so I'm just going to press that together a little bit. This has been in the refrigerator probably a little too long. My wife actually made this one, about a week ago, and I'm just using it for demonstration purposes. Turn a quarter of a turn. And so when I get all this rolled out, I'll show you how to transfer it to the pie dish. Now that I've got it rolled out, one of the ways that I can check to make sure I've got my size right is just to simply put the pie dish over top of my pie crust, and I'll know I have the right size. Then what I can do is I can fold it in half. I can even fold it in half again, lift it, put the corner right, or that little point right in the center, and then just simply fold it and fold it back in my pie. And you can see this broke a little bit. It got a little bit soft on me. One of the things that you can do is you can simply just take a little bit of the pie crust, use a little bit of water, and then just fit it back together. We're gonna press it in, and in a minute, I'll show you how to trim and dock it. My pastry is trimmed, and I've put a decorative edge around it, and so I've put saran wrap over it, and I've put it into the refrigerator for just a moment. But I wanted you to know a handy dandy helpful hint for cleaning up. Even if you don't have a pastry scraper, you probably have a rubber spatula or silicone spatula at your disposal. And one of the things that I use is I will use that to scrape the flour and the little bits of pastry off of my countertop. And I'll scrape it all into a little pile, and that just makes cleanup so much easier. Now we're going to finish our pie crust by blind baking it. And what is blind baking? Blind baking is where you take a pie crust, you put it in the oven, and you half bake it. And what that does is it keeps you from having a soggy bottom. Now at this point, you could put anything in the pie that you want after you blind bake it. You could put in a sweet filling, you could put in a quiche, really anything. Pate Brisee is so versatile. We're going to just simply take a fork, and we're going to put some little holes all through the bottom of the pie crust. This is what is known as docking. The reason we put the pie crust in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes is to keep it from shrinking when we blind bake it. Now I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper, and I've laid that down over my pie, and I'm just going to simply fill that full of pie weights. What that will do is it will again give us a nice, even, flat bottom to our pie. What are pie weights? They're simply little ceramic beads that can go into the oven and help to weight down the pie. We'll bake this for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. We don't want it to brown much, we just want it to firm up. And then we'll bring it out. You can put in whatever filling you have. So again, that's Pate Brisee. Please make sure you visit us at bootsandbowties.com. Make sure you subscribe. Every single Thursday, a new recipe comes out, and also follow us on social media. I'm so glad you watched this video, and I hope you have a great day.